Jirak was unblooded, like me, an orc that nobody cared about. He united the 9 armies, and they defeated the Dark Lord.
Wow. That sounds like kind of a big deal. Like the kind of big deal that, I don't know, might lead to a totally different, intervening 2,000 years of history.
He was a farmer who changed the world.
According to the world of Bright, there was a war of 9 races 2,000 years ago, where a Dark Lord was bad, and the orcs supported the Dark Lord. But then there was an unblooded orc named Jirak, who defected from the Dark Lord, united the 9 races, and led to his defeat. Regardless of the fact that Jirak was the hero, everyone points to this little bit of ancient history as the reason why orcs are discriminated against in the modern day.
You know what they say, once with the Dark Lord, always with the Dark Lord.
Let's take a quick look at other fantasy stories that take place in the modern day. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Harry Potter, Underworld, American Gods, Gargoyles. All of these have a secret underworld that exists alongside the world that we know, and therefore does not contradict it. This makes Bright unique, but to its detriment. It never thinks through the implications of building an alternate history. Alternate reality stories are relatively rare compared to secret underworld stories, but they're not impossible to find. BioShock Infinite and Watchmen are popular alternate reality stories, but both have relatively recent divergent points in history and massively different outcomes. The point I'm making is that the 2,000 years of backstory all of the characters make such a huge deal about would have led to a massively different universe than just LA with orc homies. And when people talk about the squandered potential of Bright, to me this is the worst part. There is no imagination put into the history of the world past the central conceit of a modern setting with orcs and elves in it. Here's a list of things that exist in the Bright universe. The Crypts.
Let's crip walk your on back to the barbecue.
Shrek.
To take your fat, Shrek-looking
The Alamo.
Hey, don't look at me, man. Mexicans still get for the Alamo.
Los Angeles. Dragons over Los Angeles.
Fairy lives don't matter today.
Well, we're gonna go through that point by point. I'm sorry, I had to. Bright made me do it. This move. Number 1, the Crypts.
Let's crip walk your on back to the barbecue.
The history of the Crypts stems from a variety of factors, namely segregationist housing policies leading up to World War II and the FBI systemic eradication of the original Black Panther Party in the late 1960s, leaving a power vacuum in South Central LA and a lot of 17-year-olds with guns. These segregationist housing policies arose not long after Jim Crow forced many Black Southerners to immigrate to the West Coast in the early 20th century, which directly results from the diaspora after the Civil War, which was fought over slavery. Ergo, it follows that the Atlantic slave trade existed in the Bright universe. Number 2, Shrek exists.
To take your fat, Shrek-looking back to your vehicle and drive the home to Fiona.
Meaning that Jeffrey Katzenberg exists, and the Disney Company exists, and it made its bread and butter from fairy tales, which are just normal tales in this universe, but okay, meaning that Jeffrey Katzenberg was let go from the Disney Company after 15 years and an acrimonious multi-million-dollar settlement and several lawsuits, and after several failed attempts at 2D animation, DreamWorks broke through with its pastiche version of fairy tale tropes, Shrek. The Alamo exists.
Hey, don't look at me, man. Mexicans still get for the Alamo.
Were there orcs there too? If there's so much strife between non-human races, why is there interhuman racism? Was there chattel slavery of orcs in addition to black people? And that's why orcs seem to all have European white surnames? Was the Alamo a bigger deal in this universe? What was the 9 races? Were Mexicans one of the 9 races? Los Angeles exists, meaning a Franciscan mission settlement was built in the 18th century, meaning the Catholic Church maintained its dominion over Spain, meaning the War of 9 Races is a thing that is so big a deal that in 2,000 years after the fact it warrants graffiti was not such a big deal that Emperor Constantine couldn't make Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century AD. You cannot include elements from our real world without importing the history that comes with them. I mean, you can, it's just, it's lazy and it sucks. This is why modern sci-fi and fantasy with alternate histories are so rare, and the ones you do see, like The Man in the High Castle and BioShock Infinite, have relatively recent divergent points in history. Sure, you could give us an alternate fantasy past that resulted in a similar present with cars and stuff, but the histories can't be the same. LA wouldn't exist, Shrek wouldn't exist, the Crypts wouldn't exist. It doesn't make sense for there to be racism against Mexicans or black people if we're so bigoted against orcs.
Everywhere I go, live orcs always gotta be the bad guys.
And elves. It just... So instead of an organic world where the history is woven in, it's just our world with fantasy elements slapped on top. like magnets on a fridge.